Hi 5th grade, welcome to Lesson 7-3, Number Sense Decimal Division. Tonight your learning goal is to divide decimals to hundredths using concrete models or drawings and strategies based on place value. Alright, let's take a minute and write down our learning goal. Your learning goal is to use number sense and estimation to determine where to place the decimal point when dividing decimals. Let's go back. Sorry, I forgot to have you write that down. Take a minute and pause the video, write your learning goal down, and when you're finished writing it in your spiral, unpause the video and we'll get started on your vocabulary terms. Go ahead and pause your video. Alright, now let's do your vocabulary terms. 3 vocabulary terms that you should already know that you've done before, but it's a good idea to write those down and have those in your journal again as reminders. Your first one is dividend. Your dividend is inside the number house and it is the number being divided. Then you have the divisor, which is the number on the outside of the dividing house, and it is the number that the dividend is being divided by. Then you have the quotient, which is the answer to your division problem. Please pause the video, write those down, and continue as soon as you've finished. All right, let's think about what you know. When dividing the divisor, and the divisor is greater than the dividend, the quotient is going to be less than 1. And let's look at this example. All right, so the divisor, remember I said the divisor is going to be on the outside of your division house. Your dividend is going to be on the inside of your dividing house. You can't divide 8 into 4, and when you have a situation like that, you have to add a decimal point to the end of it. When you have that decimal point, you can annex a 0, and it doesn't change the value of the 4, because 4 and 0 tenths is the same thing as 4. So 8 doesn't divide into 4, so nothing goes above the 4. Before you can divide any further, you have to bring this decimal point straight up above your dividing house. So it goes right there. So now you look at 8 into 40, and 8 can divide into 40 5 times. 8 times 5 is 40. You're going to subtract that. You're going to get 0. There's nothing left to bring down, so 5/10 is your answer. So when you're looking at 4 divided by 8, 5/10 is your answer. And the decimal goes before the 5 because your divisor 8 is bigger than your dividend 4. So anytime your divisor is greater than your dividend, your quotient or your answer is going to be less than 1. You'll get a fraction of a number. All right, let's continue. Let's look at another example. All right, when dividing and the divisor is less than 1, the quotient is going to be greater than the dividend. So now you have your divisor. Remember, again, your divisor is going to go on, let me get my colors ready again. All right, your divisor is going to go on the outside of your dividing house. Yeah, maybe it's going to go on the outside of your dividing house. All right. My computer's not working today. I'm doing this on this snow day, and my computer is not working. It wants to be on a snow day too. All right, so your divisor, which is 5/10, it's gone on the outside of your dividing house. So you have 5/10, and you're dividing it into 5 wholes. So there is no decimal here. However, you cannot just divide a decimal and leave the decimal here. So when you multiply decimals, remember you move your decimal point to the left. Well, when you multiply decimals, it goes to the left. When you divide, you have to move that decimal back to the right. So you take this decimal and you have to move it to the right to get rid of it. So it's going to go one place to the right. So then, in your dividend, you need to move it one place to the right. So it always starts in the whole number here. You're going to move it one place to the right. You remember you have to annex, fill that hole with a 0. So now it is 5 divided into 50. 5 goes into 5 one time. 5 times 1 is 5. You subtract that and you get 0. You have a 0 you have to bring down. You bring that down. 5 goes into 0 0 times, and there is your 10. So again, when dividing, if the divisor is less than 1, this is your divisor, the quotient is going to be greater than your dividend, and your original dividend was 5. All right, let's do some practice and see what you know. All right, these are going to be examples like what you're going to see on your practice problems today. So let's look at these together. Think about the size of the divisor and the dividend. All right, so your divisor is 4 1/10. Your dividend is 12 4/10. And think about where your decimal point is going to be. So, if you look at this, and your divisor is 4 1/10, your dividend is on the inside. You don't really have to do this to solve it. I'm just showing you how to do it. This 12 4/10 is close to 12. 4 1/10 is just close to 4. When you think about that, 12 divided by 4 is simply 3. So your answer, the decimal point, would go in between the 3, because this is actually 12 divided by 4, and therefore your decimal would go in between the 3 and the 0. So you can use what you know about number sense to do this. So if you estimate 4.1 to 4 and 12.4 to 12, 12 divided by 4 is simply 3. So your decimal point will go after the 3. That's what it means is to use number sense to estimate where the decimal is going to go. All right, let's look at another example. I've got this on here already just because this is kind of a hard concept to understand. So I put the answer on here already because we're going to just do these practice problems together on this lesson. So 7 6/8 divided by 1 5/10. Your divisor would have gone on the outside of your division problem. 7 6/8 on the inside of your dividing house. We're trying to decide where to put the decimal point. Estimating these, we're just going to think about this. Okay? What do you know about these two numbers? What number sense do you have? Well, you could estimate this to a 2, possibly, and you could estimate this to 8. Well, if you think about that, 2 goes into 8 about 4 times. So 4 is the closest whole number to 5. So your decimal point would go between the 5 and the 1, because 4 is the closest whole number to 5, and that's a whole number. And the 5 is a whole number. And on a whole number, the decimal always goes to the right of the whole number. So remember, we're just trying to look at number sense to figure out where the decimal point goes. We don't actually have to solve this problem, because in your book today, when you do your practice problems at school, you're just looking to see about where would the decimal point go using some number sense. So that's what I want you to understand. All right. Let's look at this one. Again, I put the answer on there for you because I just want you to understand what we're doing. So if you look at 256 5/10 divided by 2 5/10, your 2 5/10 would have been on the outside, 256 5/10 on the inside of the dividing house. If you estimate this, the 2 5/10 would have estimated to a 3. This would have estimated to 200 about 57. And when you think about how many times that could go in there, this could actually estimate to possibly about 300. So if that estimates to about 300, you know that 3 goes into 300 about 100 times. So looking at all of these numbers, since 3 goes into 300 about 100 times, then between all of those, you would put your decimal point here between the 2 and the 6, because 100 is closest to 102. And that's where your decimal point would go, because you're just trying to estimate about where would my decimal point go. We'll get into more division in your next lesson in 7-4. All right, let's look at a practice word problem though. All right, I've got the answer on here again because I want you to understand more about how to do the problems but I still want you to try this problem in your book. So I'm going to do it with you, and I want you to write it in your book as I do it. I have a new car. The manufacturer says that the car should get about 28 miles per gallon in the city. Always take the information out of your word problem and write it down first. About how many miles can Mrs. Dale drive on 11.5 gallons of gas? At $2.89 per gallon, how much would that cost? So 28 miles per gallon in the city. How far can I drive on 11.5 gallons of gas at $2.89 per gallon? How much would that cost? I am not going to set it up for you yet. I want you to pause the video, think about how you're going to set it up, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you how I set that up. Take a minute, pause your video, and then I'll show you how you got those two answers. All right, so let's see how you figured this out. All right, so to figure out how many miles, this colors don't seem to want to be working, to figure out how many miles, so first off it asks you, what are my questions? How many miles can Mrs. Dale drive on 11.5? So you have to multiply 11.5 times 28, and if you multiplied 11.5 times 28, you would have gotten 322 miles. So 5 times 8 is 40, carry a 4. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 4 is 12, carry a 1. 8 times 1 plus 1 is 9. Add your 0 here because we've used the 8. 2 times 5 is 10, carry a 1. 2 times 1 plus 1 is 3, and 2 times 1 is 2. When you add those together, you have 0, 2, 9 plus 3 is 2, carry a 1, and the answer is 300, because you've got one decimal, move it one place to the right, 322 miles. Then it wants to know how much would that cost. Well, to figure out how much that costs, you have to take $2.89, hopefully you did this, $2.89, then you have to multiply it by 11.5 gallons. When you do that, you're actually going to get 33.2, I multiplied it out and I'm out of room, 235. When you move your decimal point over, you would actually increase the 3 to a 4 because you had the 5. So let's see if I have enough room here to do this over here. 289 and 11.5. 9 times 5 is 45. Carry your 4. 8 and 5 is 40. Plus 4 is 44. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 4 is 14. Put a 0 here because we've multiplied by the 5. 1 times 9 is 9. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 2 is 2. We've now multiplied by both of these numbers. Oh my goodness, this pen. So we've got 2 zeros. And then we've got the same numbers because we've got another 1. So we have a 9, an 8, and a 2. When we add all of those up, we have 5, 13, 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 8 is 13, plus 9 is 22, carry our 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5, plus 8 is 13, carry a 1, and 1 plus 2 is 3. And there is the 3, 5 I was talking about. You have 3 numbers, 2 there, and 1 here to the right of the decimal point. You have to move it 3 places. 1, 2, 3, 33.235. So if you round that 3 up 1, it is $33.24. And that's how you do that problem. All right, let's look at your challenge problem for tonight. Mrs. Heckenbach is running 26.2 mile marathon. The marathon has water stops every 5/10 of a mile. About how many water stops are there on the race course? Show all your work in your journal. Explain your answer and come back to school ready to check your answer. Now think about this problem. It's kind of tricky. So you start from the very beginning and go to the first half mile mark. So really think about it as you're doing your challenge problem. Come back and we'll check it in class tomorrow. All right, let's finish up. Review your learning goals. Have you mastered all of them? Do you need to go back and review and practice anything again? In your journal, please mark a 1, 2, or 3 for your understanding. Have your learning goals, your vocabulary, all the practice, and the word problems written down, and your answer to your challenge problem. Please make sure you show all of your work. Have a great night, and I will see you tomorrow.